exciting part of this afternoon. Are you guys excited? We have a workshop coming up from the first English-speaking comedian from Indonesia, Reggie. And I'm sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly.
Nah, it's okay. It's okay. Hi, you guys. How are you? Great. Greetings from Jakarta. My name is Reggie Azibuan. You can call me Reggie, Rex, Reggie. Okay, still the same guy. So basically, I'm here to share with you guys some tips and tricks for comedy. I'm a stand-up comedian, you can say, but I'm also Toastmasters, and these are two different spectrum of two different skill sets, right? Because stand-up comedies cannot be utilized fully in Toastmasters. Toastmaster speech cannot be utilized fully in stand-up comedy. But if you take some of them and combine them, we can have something beautiful in between. And that's my purpose today, right? How to take something from comedy, how to take something from Toastmaster speeches and make a wonderful humorous speech based on experience. But before that, I've made several of these workshops in other Toastmaster clubs. And the members were always a bit skittish. They think that being funny is not for them. Right? Someone else should be funny, not them. Okay. Now, let's improve our perspective a bit. What do you think being funny is? Right? Should a person be a total extrovert, laugh all the time, share many shameless things to be funny? Now, allow me to share this with you guys. Okay. Now, do you guys know who this is?
Alan Woody.
Yes, this is Woody Allen, ladies and gentlemen. Now, he's currently a director, movie maker, script writer, very famous arts fellow, but he also started in doing comedy, right? Okay, now Woody Allen is not exactly the most extrovert kind of person. He's very introverted. In fact, he spent most of his childhood away from people, because he can't stand them. Now, when he tried stand-up comedy, this is what happened. He suffered from near paralytic stage fright. Simply getting on stage was a trial, but staying there was even more difficult. On some occasions, he stood stiff as a post. On others, he covered his face with his hands as if to hide from audience. Sounds familiar to you? Anyone ever got this kind of experience, right? But we are talking about Woody Allen here, right? Look at him now and look at where he started, right? He started like this. But with throughout many years of persevering on stage and also the help of his friends, he became what he is now. But all right, I mean, he's a Hollywood kind of a guy, privileged probably. Yeah, fine. Let's try other figure. How about this? You guys know this one? All right. Now, you guys should definitely check this guy on YouTube. His name is Joe Wong. He's a Chinese American. He's a stand-up comedian now, but he has a PhD in bioengineering. Right? Okay. But instead of being a researcher or a scientist, he has chosen to be a comedian, and quite a successful one too. Now, he's not exactly a lively comedian. No, he's very deadpan, and that's what makes him funny, right? But Joe Wong started in 2001. He got recognition in 2009. It took him 9 years, ladies and gentlemen. So my point is that being funny is not a talent. It's a skill that needs to be trained, okay? So that means everyone can be funny as long as we're willing to spend time to harness the skill. But if Joe Wong is not familiar enough for you, I'm sure you know this guy. Right?
Yeah. World champion.
World champion in Toastmaster public speaking, Dhananjaya Hetarachi from Sri Lanka. Right. And if you pay attention to Dhananjaya's speech, I mean, he got imprisoned. And then he turned his life around through Toastmaster and becoming a good speaker. My point is that if these guys can do it, so can we, right? Our background most probably is not as difficult as them, but they have the willingness to spend and invest significant time to harness this skill so they can use humor. I'm not saying they're funny, right? I'm saying they know how to use humor. There you go. Now, in my case, ladies and gentlemen, I never consider myself as a funny person, even though people mostly thought of me that way. But I try my best to practice the skill of using humor in my performance. And that's how I consider myself. And that's what I'm going to show you today, the joke craft in 30 minutes. Now, please pay attention that my material is usually a one-day material. That's how I give my workshop, or at least several hours. So to compress it in 30 minutes, I have to say there will be a lot of features that I can't include, right? But some basics I can. So please curb your enthusiasm, but we are going to cover the basics in here. Now, moving on. Jokes are basically part of a story, especially in Toastmaster context. Before we put on jokes, include jokes into a story, the question is, what makes a story interesting? Right? We all have stories, but what makes them interesting so we can instill jokes into it? To explain about this, I would like to steal a meme that is currently on the hype. Maybe some of you know about this meme. Okay, now so please check this meme. What's the point of interest in this picture?
There's a contrast.
Exactly. Yes. And of course, the drowning girl. Well, she's not exactly drowning, right? She's okay. It's just this picture was taken while she's gasping for air. But she became the point of interest because of the contrast. You're right. Without the happy lady and the happy girl on the background, this picture will not be that interesting, right? It's the contrast that makes it interesting. And also the amount of tragedy in this picture. It's tragic. It's what makes it interesting. Okay? If the picture only have the happy lady with the girl, it's gonna be a usual picture. If the picture only have the gasping girl, it might be a bit tragic, but not as special as this picture, which combines both. You have happiness, you have tragedy, all in one frame. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much how a Toastmaster should compose their speech. Now, but also, this is how to have comedy. Because the basic essence of comedy is tragedy plus time. Okay? If you think that you are not interesting enough to be made as a story, specifically a joke, do think again. Because everyone in this world have experienced tragedies. And those tragedies, each one of them can be cultivated into an interesting story and jokes, right? Just give it time. The moment you stop traumatized by your tragedy, the moment you can actually turn the tragedy into a joke or comedy, okay? Allow me to give you some examples. Before I go on into the examples, let me remind you, this is a workshop, not a seminar, right? It is not a one-way thing, not a monologue. At some part of this workshop, I will expect you to do some exercise, yeah? So we all can have first-hand feelings in crafting jokes. But let's go back into here. Example of comedy is tragedy plus time. Now, I coach some comedians a lot actually in the past. One comedian was quite attractive because he's blind, right? And you know, as a blind person, that's quite a tragedy, right? So I try to coach him and turn his tragedy as a blind person into comedy. And this is what he come out with. This is his joke, ladies and gentlemen. One of the great things of being blind is that it's always a good excuse to ask a random girl to hold my hands. I laugh out loud. And I'm sure you too, by your expression. See, this is how you turn a tragedy into comedy. We have a blind person making fun of himself being blind, right? In the way that people can laugh. We may feel a bit guilty while laughing, but the point is that we laugh, okay? And this is a true example of utilizing tragedy into comedy, okay? I mean, being blind is a tragedy, right? You can go more tragic than that. But look at how this blind comedian can turn to the table. Right, that's first example. Second example will be from my mom. My mom, ladies and gentlemen, was a 2-time cancer survivor. I spent 40 years by her side, trying accompanying her in the hospital. It was quite a depressing time, which resulting in me eating a lot, especially because my mom could not eat all the food from the visitors. So I ended up finishing them. so throughout the 4 years, she was skinnier and I got fatter actually. So I gained weight, yeah. And I complained to my mom, and she said this to me, Reggie, you want to know what's the best way to lose weight? Cancer. My mom said this, ladies and gentlemen, and she was having cancer. Well, she said that. Okay, during my depression at that time, I laughed out loud because my mom just made one of the darkest joke I have ever heard. Right? But then again, that's also an example how my mom was able to turn tragedy into comedy. Right? Not only it's funny, it's also true. So, those are the examples of how tragedy can make the best jokes in the world. Okay, I'm not saying that if you don't, I'm saying actually, if a story doesn't have a tragedy in it, it will not be as appealing as the opposite, right? I mean, we can have a speaker saying that, hello, I'm rich. My kids went to good schools and their future are secured for the next 2 decades. All right, a speech like that is a speech, but it won't be as interesting as a speech of somebody who has experienced 0 to hero, right? Pain, tragedy, dramas are always appealing for a good story as long as we know how to twist it. Joke will be a good twist. Let's dissect those jokes now, shall we? Right? The first one. One of the great things of being blind is, this is called the premise. The second part, the punchline. Right? I know that most of you are probably familiar with punchlines, but probably not all of you know that before punchline, there's a premise. Okay? The premise is the start of the joke. The purpose is to mislead the audience and give way to a punchline. Punchline is the unexpected end of a premise. Unexpected being the key word. All right? A punchline must always be surprising. Yeah, must always come unexpected. Otherwise, the premise will go plain. All right. Now, to prepare for the punchline, we have a good premise. Okay. Let's go back like this. Okay. Now, let's dissect this premise. One of the great things of being blind, if you have not realized and have not known about the punchline, what would you think would come next? Right? What's so great about being blind anyway? Okay. I mean, you probably think about cheaper healthcare, maybe, right? Even the premise was surprising. There's actually a good thing about being blind. And it's followed by this. Okay? The punch, people would not expect the punchline that actually, yeah, being blind can be used as a start of a romantic relationship from the perspective of a blind comedian. There you go. So the point is that the punchline must always come unexpected. Okay? To ensure this, the premise must direct the audience to expect something, right? Okay? And then that expectation would totally be betrayed by the punchline. That's the purpose of the premise, to mislead the audience. Let's try the second one. Okay? What's the best way to lose weight? We will think, weight reduction program. Diet. Working out. You would never, ever have guessed that the answer would be cancer. Right? So this is also a shocking punchline, but true. It's not wrong. That's why it's a good punchline. So, but this proves the formula: premise, punchline. The purpose of premise is to mislead the audience, give them an expectation, and the purpose of a punchline is to betray that expectation by giving something totally different. And thus, the punchline can be surprising. Now, enough of me talking. Let's try. Let's give it a shot. Let's craft jokes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give you a premise, and you are going to make the jokes. The punchline, I'm sorry. Okay? Remember, the point of the punchline is to be surprising, right? Okay? And the point of the premise is to mislead the audience, give them an expectation, and the punchline must stay away from any of those expectations, so it can be surprising. This is the premise. I was trapped in hospital for 2 weeks. Now think about hospitals. Think. What would hospitals relate to? Health, medication, nurses, doctors. So that means the punchline should not be any of this. The punchline should not be about healthcare, should not be about doctors, should not be about medication, should not be about medication bills, because those will be predictable. So, make a punchline that is not in any way medications, doctor, nurses, or hospital bills. I was trapped in hospital for 2 weeks. What's the punchline? Give it a thought. Give it a thought. All right? Okay. Anyone want to give it a shot?
There have been 4 on the.
Yeah, I saw the chats. You guys are good. You guys are good. I did not expect this. Okay. Wow, there's so many. Now, I was in a hospital for 2 weeks. For not wearing a mask is actually a bit predictable because it's also about. But hey! This is not about right or wrong, yeah. It's about giving it a good effort. Mandatory everywhere. Fired me as a chef. that is a bit too random. Now, have several days off from my office, for my studies, that's good. That's not bad. Yeah? Trapped in a hospital to stay away from studies. Unexpected and funny and somehow true, given the load of students in Hong Kong, I bet. I'm glad I don't need to see my boss. Also true. That had the same passion with the previous one about studying. Together with the cockroach, cockroach sleeping is okay. Maybe I don't quite understand this one. I was trapped in the hospital for 2 weeks. had the best gourmet experience. Oh my God, that is so good. That is so good. Don, you're that's a good one. It's all, I give you a plus point, John, because it's short, right? In comedy, the less we use words, the better. Okay, so a quick jokes would be great. My God, I was trapped in hospital for 2 weeks and escaped my meal. What's a meal? Military drafting, right? I don't know.
Mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law.
Oh, Mandarin. All right. Also good. Also good. Okay. Now further the food again. Food from Snigdha Sarma. That's good. Wow, we have a lot. Okay. I finished my 2 speeches. Michael Chan, you rock! Okay. All right. Let's move on. Wow, I did not expect this. You guys are totally different in my Indonesian audience. You guys are very smart. Okay. So basically, you guys understand about the whole concept, the formula, about premise and punchline. This is an example of a punchline. Sorry. Looking for a downline because you're selling multi-level, you're in multi-level marketing, or basically waiting for inheritance. Sorry, I got boxed. Okay. So basically, and these punchlines are not even as strong as yours. Yours are brilliant. Okay. So I think at least you can understand the formula. That's how you create premise and punchline. All right. Now, in a Toastmaster speech format, those kind of jokes would have to be incorporated, right? Because in the Toastmaster speech format, a speech must be dynamic. What do I mean by dynamic? A speech must be about your life, your daily life probably, right? But it must not only have one emotion. It should always have multiple emotion. Look, it's difficult to have an emotion into a speech, nevertheless more than one. But to have a dynamic speech, you gotta have more than one emotion. The kind of emotions that you can have are sadness and happiness. Okay? Regret and joy. Yin and yang. Now these two, if combined, will make wonderful speeches. Right? Okay? We can, and every single Toastmaster champion speech, if you listen to them, would have this formula. Not only they're touching on a personal level, but they can be funny in the same way. In fact, the closer the sadness to the point being funny, the better. So people cry and then laugh and they're confused. Huh? Did that just happened? Right? The point of surprise being unexpected is there. And as long as you can keep your audience unexpected, you can reap more points. So, dynamic in a speech is a must, right? As can be seen by all Toastmaster champion speeches. You must have sadness and happiness, okay? Touching point and jokes. How to incorporate the jokes? Well, basically, in my experience, this is the formula. You have drama for 70% in your speech about how sad your life is, how your life is a struggle, you're being bullied, your family don't recognize you, right? It's hard to climb in your office being the youngest, etc. Now, yes, that's a sad story. People can relate to that. However, right, you cannot just have a sad story because that's going to be a downer for the audience. Okay? To keep it interesting, put some jokes. Where should we put the jokes? Now, humor, I advise, must be present at the opening. Why? Because opening is very important. If you can end an opening with a laugh, the audience will remember you. But please remember, the time allocation for opening must not be more than 1 minute, usually. Right? So try to think about an opening that you can end with a joke. In fact, try to think about an opening first. Okay? Jokes come later. Okay? Try to think how to introduce your speech so the audience will follow you throughout the rest. If you have a good opening plus ending it with a laugh, boom, it's a good start for your speech. Solid start. All right? Okay. Don't worry, we are going to try this. I'm just explaining about the formula now. Second of all, in the body of your speech, insert some jokes. Yeah, especially after you're done with the sobbing part. All right? Remember, the skill is the closer you can get jokes to after a sobbing part, the greater. All right? Why is it so great? It's because it's difficult. It's not easy. Right? But once you do it, the result will be remarkable. But if you can't do it, don't force it. Yeah? The joke can be anywhere else around the body. It's just the best scenario. It's just the closest you get after a sad story, the better. Because the quick transformation will surprise the audience. In my experience, my cancer story, actually, I made the audience cry, literally shed tears during my speech in district, right? And then I cracked that jokes about cancer, and they all laughed, and they laughed confusedly, right? Because they did not expect something like that hit after the sad story. Now, for closing, it's optional, because what's important in Toastmaster speech closing is your message is delivered, right? Your message is empowered. That's the priority. But if you can put jokes into that, great. But remember, sometimes jokes weakened the message. So I would not advise you to force that joke, especially in the closing, especially if that joke would only weaken the message. Okay? If people remember the joke, but not the message, thus the message would be weakened, right? Please don't do that. Avoid doing that. The message is the priority. Joke is supposed to spice the message, but not to become the main ingredient. Now, we're going to try. Right? Let's craft some jokes, ladies and gentlemen. What I need you to do right now is to recall or make an opening for your speech. Okay? Right? Okay. And you are going to either type it, if it's not too much of a work, in the chat, or speak it even better, so I can see your facial expression and everything. Okay? I'm going to give you several minutes, starting now, and I'm going to buy time by talking. All right, let me buy time by reminding you about how we're going to play this. You are either going to create an opening speech, 1 minute average, 2 minute maximum, okay? Best if with jokes. There you go, right? You can either make a new opening of your speech, or you may recall an old one that you have made. Right? And then you are going to instill jokes, and we are going to dissect it together in here. Okay. Remember, the point is that to make a memorable opening. If you can close an opening with a joke, excellent. Okay.
Our general evaluator, Brian, has given an opening. Until the age of 10, I could...
Wait. Excuse me. All right, I have to minimize my screen. Can the Zoom operator share the screen so I can see it?
Reggie, time is up, so we'll have only 2 or 3 more minutes there.
Whoa, what? All right, I told you it's compacted. All right, we only have chance for 2 speakers. Who's gonna do it? Ophelia, number 1. Wait, number 2, who?
Okay, may I go for it?
Yeah, sure. Give it a shot.
I failed my university entrance exam, but the best thing is that I can run away from a high school to join Toastmasters.
And that's how you turn tragedy into comedy. And it's even funnier because it's real. It sounded real, right? I don't know if it's real, but it sounded real. Congratulations, Novia. You understand the formula, right? Okay. Now, for the body, try to incorporate some jokes. Yeah, I will suggest having 3 or 4 jokes into the body, right? So it can be dynamic. Okay, and don't force 2 jokes together. Try to separate them in different paragraphs, right? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Brian Hodgson.
Hi there. Okay, so until the age of 10, I could not talk. I had a severe speech impediment, and I'd say to kids in the class, and nobody could understand me. How sad was that? But it gave me a job. Now, as an auctioneer, I do the same. Sold. It worked out okay.
You're an auctioneer. I can never understand what they said.
Exactly. When I was 10, they couldn't understand what I said.
Thank you very much, Brian. That was brilliant. Okay, you get the formula, right? For the body of your speech, the same like Ophelia, I would suggest having 3 or 4 jokes, not more than 5 probably, otherwise the masses will be compromised, right? And try not to fit in 2 jokes together, okay? Because basically you play with dynamics, yeah? Happiness, sadness, and you have enough of these zebras, you're gonna have an appealing speech. So, I'm sorry I went overboard and over time. Yeah, there are a lot others skill involved in making humorous speech, but I hope it's helpful for now. Okay, and thank you for having me. If you guys have any questions or you guys would like to pursue this kind of workshop further, hey, you guys can always invite me again. Thank you very much, Tung Chung Toastmaster Club. Back to you, Toastmaster of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Reggie. They say that laughing is the best therapy, and I think your workshop was pretty therapeutic for all of us. And my stomach is hurting from all the laughter. So thank you so much. We at Tung Chung Toastmasters are very honored to have you there amongst us and for your valuable contributions today.